The vast, star-dusted blackness of space was supposed to be silent. But for the sleek vessel Starlight Serenity, the silence was a lie. It was filled with a constant low hum, the sound of its advanced gravity drive holding it in a perfect, motionless orbit. The ship was a jewel of the Galactic Concorde, all smooth, white curves and soft, glowing lights. Inside, the air was clean and calm. There was no rush, no sharp smell, only the quiet purpose of exploration. Captain Min stood on the command bridge, his hands clasped softly behind his back. He was a calm man, his face marked by the gentle wisdom of many years spent traveling between the stars. He looked at the main view screen, which showed a planet of stunning beauty. It was a swirl of deep blues and brilliant greens, with white clouds dancing in its atmosphere. It looked peaceful, but Min knew better. The data scrolling on the screens around him told the real story. This was K381, a classified Class 3 Deathworld. "The initial scans are alarming, Captain," said Gene, the xenobiologist. His voice was soft, but a small tremor of anxiety ran through it. He pointed a slender finger at his own data screen. "The atmosphere has oxygen levels far higher than Concorde comfortable. There are also trace neurotoxins. And the life signs, the biosignature density is off the scale. Every reading suggests hyperpredatory behavior." From her station nearby, Sue, the communications expert, let out a small, nervous breath. "It's like the whole planet is screaming. The background electromagnetic noise from the wildlife is incredible. I can't even isolate a clear signal if I tried." She adjusted her headset, as if the act of physically touching it could bring order to the chaos. Chief Engineer Hannah leaned over her console, her brow furrowed. "The geological activity is just as bad. Tectonic plates are constantly shifting. I'm reading multiple volcanic eruptions happening right now. And look at this, the planet's magnetic field has random, violent surges. A single one of those could fry our unshielded systems." Captain Min nodded slowly. This was why the Concorde approached such worlds with extreme caution. Their society was built on peace, on the gentle pursuit of knowledge. They had long ago moved beyond violence, beyond the harsh struggle for survival. A world like this was a nightmare to them, a place of pure, untamed chaos and death. It was a place to be studied from a very, very safe distance. "Maintain high orbit," Min ordered, his voice steady. "Full sensor sweep. Let us map this verdant hell. We will collect our data and add to the Concorde's archives. That is our mission." The crew worked efficiently. The Starlight Serenity was equipped with the best sensing technology in the Concorde. Its scanners could map a continent down to the smallest leaf, analyzing the chemical composition of a single blade of grass from hundreds of kilometers away. For hours, they worked, compiling a terrifying picture of K381. They saw forests where the trees moved with predatory intent. They saw oceans where leviathan creatures battled in the depths. They saw plains where herds of animals were constantly hunted by packs of swift, brutal predators. Gene watched the data flow, his scientific curiosity battling with a deep-seated fear. "It is fascinating," he murmured, more to himself than anyone. "An entire ecosystem based on extreme competition. There is no cooperation here. Only eat or be eaten. I have never seen such efficient, widespread violence in a biosphere." It was during one of these detailed continental scans that Gene noticed an anomaly. At first, he thought it was a sensor ghost, a trick of the planet's violent magnetic field. It was a cluster of shapes on the edge of a massive mountain range, near a raging river. The shapes were too straight, too perfect. "Captain," Gene said, his voice now sharp with confusion, "I am detecting a structural anomaly on the surface. On the western continent. Coordinates 34.7 by 12.1. Min turned from his contemplation of the view screen. "An anomaly? Geological?" "No, Captain," Gene replied, his fingers flying across his console to enhance the image. "Not geological. The angles are right angles." A quiet tension filled the bridge. In a natural world of chaos, right angles did not exist. They were the hallmark of intelligence. Sue turned from her station, her work on the planet's noisy biosignals forgotten. Hannah looked up from her engineering reports. Day, the head of security, who had been quietly monitoring the ship's safety systems, took a step closer to the main view screen. Put it on the main screen, Jean, Min instructed. Jean complied. The image of the beautiful, deadly planet was replaced by a magnified, computer-enhanced view of a section of the mountains. The river carved through a deep valley, and on one of the slopes, half buried by a landslide and covered in thick, vibrant alien vines, was a structure. It was colossal, larger than any ship the Concorde had in its fleet. Its hull was a dull, scarred metal, pitted by what looked like acid burns and gouged by immense, parallel scratches. One end was completely crumpled from a brutal impact, but the central section, though battered, was mostly intact. Hannah was the first to break the stunned silence. Her engineer's mind was already analyzing the form. By the first song, that is a vessel. A generation ship by the look of its propulsion architecture. But its design, it's so primitive. And the size, it's a giant. Can you get a life sign reading? Min asked, his professional calm masking a growing sense of disbelief. Jean recalibrated his sensors, focusing them on the massive wreck. The results made him gasp aloud. Captain, I am reading power. Low level but stable. Fusion reactors, I think. And there is a defensive energy shield, flickering, but active around a large portion of the central hull. He paused, his eyes wide as he looked at the new data. And I am reading life signs inside the shield. Dozens of them. Humanoid. And they are moving outside the ship. On the surface. The bridge was utterly silent. The implication was too enormous to process. A Class 3 Deathworld was supposed to be sterile of advanced life. It was a place of animalistic fury, not of tool-building, shield-generating intelligence. Yet the evidence was right in front of them. Someone had not only crashed on this nightmare world, but they had survived. They had powered their ship, raised shields, and were walking on a surface that should have dissolved them in minutes. Sue finally found her voice. Who are they? She whispered. Captain Min stared at the image of the colossal, wounded ship, a silent giant sleeping in a bed of terror. The mission had just changed completely. This was no longer a survey of a deadly world. It was a first contact, and it was happening in the most dangerous place imaginable. Bring us into a lower orbit, Min commanded, his voice low but firm. Hannah, I want a full analysis of that ship's design and power signature. Sue, scan for any communication frequencies, anything at all. Jean, continue life sign analysis. I want to know everything we can about them before we make our presence known. The Starlight Serenity, a ship of peace and gentle science, now hung in the sky above a world of death, looking down at a miracle that should not have been possible. The quiet hum of the ship seemed softer now, a small, fragile sound against the roaring, violent reality of the planet below. The bridge of the Starlight Serenity was so quiet they could hear the gentle hum of the life support systems. All eyes were locked on the main view screen, where the image of the colossal wreck was displayed in stark detail. It was a tombstone and a monument, all in one. Chief Engineer Hannah was the first to break the silence. Her fingers danced across her console, her usual calm replaced by a focused intensity. The structural analysis is baffling, Captain. The hull is a primitive titanium steel alloy. The design principles are centuries behind Concorde technology. The stress fractures from atmospheric entry alone should have torn it to pieces. She looked up, her expression one of pure professional disbelief. It is a miracle it is in one piece. A physical impossibility. Jean, the xenobiologist, added his own data. The life signs are confirmed. 63 humanoid biosignatures. Their readings are unusual. Extremely dense muscle mass, accelerated metabolic rates. Their body temperatures run higher than Concorde standard. They are not just surviving down there, Captain. They are thriving. Captain Min absorbed the information, his face a mask of calm thought. Sue, any communications? Any signal at all? Sue shook her head, adjusting the sensitive receiver in her ear. Nothing, Captain. No radio waves, no tikt beam transmissions. Just the chaotic noise of the planet and the low-power hum from their reactor. It's like they are deliberately silent. Day, the head of security, spoke for the first time. His voice was a low, steady rumble. Captain, protocol dictates extreme caution. A Deathworld species, even if intelligent, is by definition unpredictable and potentially hostile. We do not know their nature. Min nodded. He knew the protocols well. The Concorde had encountered aggressive species before, but they were always from worlds as peaceful as their own. A species born from a Class 3 world was an entirely new and terrifying variable. We will proceed with caution, Day, but we cannot ignore this. This is the most significant discovery in generations. Hannah, can you get a name from that ship? Hannah zoomed the image on the main screen, focusing on a less damaged section of the hull near the bow. Vines and a thick, rust-like substance covered most of it, but the letters were faintly visible, stamped into the metal itself. She cleaned up the image with the computer. The name emerged, weathered and proud, Odyssey. The Odyssey. Min read the word aloud. It felt ancient. Scanning the surrounding area, Gene said, his voice tight with a new kind of tension. I am detecting more than just the main wreck. Look. He overlay a new image on the screen. Around the flickering shield of the Odyssey, there were smaller geometric shapes. Simple structures made of local stone and salvaged metal. They have built outposts, defensive positions. They have not just been hiding inside the ship. They have been expanding. They are colonizing. This changed everything. Survivors huddled in a wreck was one thing. A colony actively building and fortifying was another. It spoke of a long-term plan of a society. The defensive nature of these structures is clear, Day observed, pointing at the screen. See the sight lines? These walls are positioned to cover approaches from the river and the dense forest. They are expecting attacks. From what? Sue asked, a shiver in her voice. From everything. Jean answered grimly, gesturing to the general scan of the planet. On this world, everything is a threat. Captain Min made a decision. We need a closer look. We cannot understand them from orbit. Prepare a probe, a Class 2 long-range observational unit. I want a silent, passive approach. It will enter the upper atmosphere and give us a real-time visual of the settlement around the Odyssey. The crew moved with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, a small spherical probe was launched from the Starlight Serenity. It fell towards the planet like a silent stone, its stealth systems engaged. The bridge crew watched the data feed on a secondary screen. They saw the sky turn from black to blue, felt the vibration of the thick atmosphere. The probe slowed its descent, hovering high above the mountain valley where the Odyssey rested. The view was breathtaking and terrifying. The jungle was a vibrant, pulsating green, but it was a violent green. They saw trees with whip-like branches snatching large, flying creatures from the air. They saw the river, which from space looked beautiful, now teeming with sharp fins and sudden, explosive struggles between aquatic monsters. And there, nestled against the mountain, was the Odyssey. From this closer vantage point, the damage was even more apparent. The crash had torn a massive scar through the jungle. But around the ship, a clearing had been made and fiercely defended. The ground was packed earth, stained dark in some places. The outer walls, which from orbit looked simple, were now visible as thick, formidable barriers, topped with sharpened spikes of a strange, black wood. What looked like simple structures were, in fact, sturdy huts with reinforced roofs. Then, they saw the people. The probe's powerful zoom lens brought the scene to life. A group of 5 humans was walking along a cleared path between the outer wall and the ship's main, shielded entrance. They were not like the slender, graceful beings of the Concorde. These men and women were solid, broad-shouldered, and moved with a powerful, grounded gait. Their clothing was a practical patchwork of faded ship fabric and tanned animal hides. They carried tools, long metal poles with sharpened ends, and what looked like heavy-duty cutting implements, but they held them like weapons. Their faces were the most striking. They were not filled with fear or despair. Their expressions were alert, calm, and hard. Their eyes constantly scanned the jungle, the sky, the river. They did not chatter or laugh. They communicated with sharp hand gestures and short, guttural words the probe's audio could barely pick up. "They look so strong," Sue whispered, her fear mixed with a strange sense of awe as the crew watched. One of the men, who seemed to be the leader of the small group, stopped. He held up a clenched fist, and the others froze instantly. He was looking directly at a dense thicket of purple ferns. The Concorde crew saw nothing. Then the ferns trembled. A creature, low to the ground and covered in mottled brown fur, launched itself out with impossible speed. It had too many legs and a mouth full of needle-like teeth. The event was over in 2 seconds. The leader didn't even step back. In one fluid motion, he sidestepped the creature's lunge and brought the blunt end of his metal pole down on its head with a sharp crack that was picked up by the probe's microphone. The creature fell, twitched, and was still. The man then gestured, and another member of the group quickly and efficiently hauled the carcass onto their shoulders. It was clearly dinner. No one had screamed. No one had panicked. It was just procedure. "They see this as normal," Gene said, his voice full of scientific wonder. "Their threat assessment and reaction time is beyond anything in our databases. They are perfectly adapted to this environment." The probe continued its silent observation. It watched as a team worked on reinforcing a section of the wall. It watched as children, who looked just as sturdy and alert as the adults, were taught how to set intricate snares. It watched as the massive, armored main door of the Odyssey slid open just enough for a person to slip through, revealing a glimpse of a well-lit, organized interior before it hissed shut. These were not desperate survivors clinging to life. They were a community, a hardened, disciplined, and terrifyingly efficient community that had not only faced the worst the galaxy had to offer but had learned to live with it. Captain Min stared at the screen, at the people who walked through hell as if it were their backyard. The peaceful, logical part of his mind, trained by a lifetime in the Concorde, struggled to comprehend it. The Odyssey was not a graveyard. It was a fortress, and its inhabitants were not victims. They were something new, something the galaxy had not seen before. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his soul, that they could not just observe from a distance any longer. They had to make contact. The decision was made. Captain Min knew they could not hide in orbit forever. The people of the Odyssey were intelligent. They would have seen the starlight Serenity by now, a new, silent star in their sky. To delay contact would be to seem fearful or, worse, hostile. The Concorde protocols for first contact were clear. Be open, be peaceful, and make your intentions known. "We will take the shuttle," Min announced to the bridge crew. "A small team, myself, Sue, Jean, and Day. Hannah, you will remain in command of the Starlight Serenity. If there is any sign of trouble, you are to retreat to a safe distance immediately." Hannah nodded, her face serious. "Understood, Captain. I will monitor everything from here." The shuttle was a small, elegant craft, designed for peaceful diplomatic missions. Its smooth, white surface and softly glowing running lights were a stark contrast to the scarred, brutal landscape of the planet below. As it descended, the ride was smooth, but the view from the viewports was not. They saw the violent beauty of K381 up close. Thunderstorms raged in the distance, and the jungle below was a seething, moving carpet of life and death. Jean watched, fascinated and horrified. The biodiversity is staggering, and almost universally predatory. Look at the size of those flying creatures. Sue adjusted the translation software on her datapad, her knuckles white. "I hope this works. Their language is so short, so guttural. The computer has very little to work with." Day sat perfectly still, his posture calm. His role was not to fight. The Concorde did not have soldiers. His role was to assess threats and advise on safety. On this world, he felt, everything was a threat. Captain Min piloted the shuttle with a steady hand. He guided it towards the coordinates they had observed, the cleared landing area just outside the main defensive wall of the Odyssey settlement. As they dropped lower, they could see figures gathering on the walls, watching their approach. They did not run or hide. They simply stood and observed, their postures alert but not aggressive. The shuttle settled onto the hard-packed earth with a gentle hum. The landing struts sank slightly into the dark soil. Through the viewport, the team could see the people clearly now. They were even more imposing up close. Their faces were stern, their eyes missing nothing. They were not pointing their sharp tools at the shuttle, but they held them ready. "Remember the protocols," Min said softly to his team. "No sudden movements. Su, you will do the talking once we establish a baseline for communication. Let's go." The shuttle door hissed open, and a ramp extended. The first thing that hit them was the air. It was thick, heavy, and humid, filled with 1,000 alien smells. The scent of rich, rotting vegetation, strange, spicy flowers, and the faint metallic tang of blood. The gravity was also stronger than ship standard, making their movements feel slow and clumsy. The 4 Concorde crew members stepped out, their pristine white environment suits glowing in the filtered sunlight that broke through the thick canopy. They stood in a small group at the bottom of the ramp, feeling exposed and incredibly fragile. For a long moment, the two groups just looked at each other. The humans from the Odyssey looked at the strange, soft-looking visitors in their bubble suits. The Concorde crew looked at the hardened, practical people who stood before them, their clothes stained with earth and use. Then, the leader of the group on the wall, a man with a calm, authoritative presence, raised an empty hand. It was a simple, universal gesture. He then climbed down from the wall and walked towards them, followed by 2 others, a man and a woman. He stopped a few meters away, his eyes scanning each of them in turn. His gaze was intense, measuring. Sue took a small step forward, holding up her datapad. "We come in peace," she said, her voice amplified and translated by the device. "We are explorers from the Galactic Concorde." The leader tilted his head, listening to the translated words that came from the datapad in his own language. He did not look surprised. He looked curious. "I am Chul," he said, his voice a low, rough sound. The datapad in Sue's hands translated his words after a brief delay. "You are from the stars." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Before Sue could answer, Jean, the xenobiologist, noticed movement in the periphery. He turned his head slowly. Emerging from the dense purple ferns at the edge of the clearing was a creature. It was the size of a large dog, but built like a predator, with 6 powerful legs and a long, bony tail that ended in a sharp, venomous-looking barb. It moved with a silent, fluid grace, its multiple black eyes fixed on the group of newcomers. It saw them as easy prey. Jean froze, a small sound of fear escaping his lips. Day tensed, his mind racing through non-violent conflict resolution protocols that were utterly useless against an animal. Chul saw the direction of their gaze. He did not turn his head. He simply raised his left hand and made a sharp, chopping motion towards the ground. In an instant, there was a thwip sound from the wall. A metal bolt, launched from a powerful crossbow, flew through the air and struck the creature directly in its primary eye cluster. The creature let out a piercing shriek, thrashed for a second, and then collapsed, the barb on its tail twitching uselessly. The entire event took less than 3 seconds. Chul had not even broken eye contact with Captain Min. The woman behind him walked over to the dead creature, pulled out the bolt, and hauled the carcass back towards the wall without a word. It was as routine as picking up a fallen leaf. Chul looked back at Sue, his expression unchanged. "You were saying?" he prompted, as if he had just swatted a fly. Sue was trembling, her professional composure shattered by the casual display of violence and efficiency. She struggled to find her voice. We mean you no harm. We saw your ship. We did not think anyone could survive here." Chul gave a small, grim smile. "Survival is not a matter of thought. It is a matter of action." He looked at their suits. "You should come inside the walls. The air is clean enough to breathe if your bodies can handle it. And it is safer." Captain Min found his voice. "We thank you for your protection. We will follow you." He gave a subtle nod to his team. They were here to learn, and their first lesson had been a brutal one. On this world, death was always moments away, and these people were its masters. Chul led them through the massive, reinforced gate. It was made of thick metal plates from the Odyssey, scarred and dented from repeated impacts. As it hissed shut behind them, the Concorde crew felt a strange sense of relief, followed immediately by a new kind of awe. They were inside the settlement. It was not a desperate camp of survivors. It was a functioning, organized village. The air under the flickering energy shield was clearer. The oppressive humidity lessened. Sturdy huts, built from a mix of salvaged ship metal and the strange black wood of the planet, were arranged in neat rows. They saw a communal cooking area where a large, six-legged creature was being butchered with practiced efficiency. They saw a workshop where tools were being forged and repaired. They saw children, who stopped their play to stare at the newcomers in their white suits. Even the children had that same alert, calm look in their eyes. "Your suits," Chul said, gesturing. "The air here is filtered by our shield. It is safe. You will see us better without them." It was a test. Captain Min knew it. To remain in their suits was to show distrust, to maintain a barrier. He looked at his team. Jean gave a small, nervous nod. Sue looked unsure, but Day, after a moment's assessment, also nodded. The security risk was high, but the diplomatic need was higher. Slowly, they began to unseal their environment suits. The process felt clumsy and exposed. When the helmets came off, the air hit them. It was rich and thick, carrying the smell of smoked meat, damp earth, and a faint, ozone-like scent from the energy shield. Jean took an experimental breath. "The oxygen is high," he reported quietly to Min. "It will make us feel lightheaded, and there are trace pollens, but nothing immediately toxic. Our preventative inoculations should handle it." Without the suits, they felt even more vulnerable. Their Concorde-made clothes were soft and simple, a stark contrast to the rugged, practical wear of the Odyssey survivors. Chul observed them, his sharp eyes noting every detail of their slender builds and their cautious movements. "This way," he said, and led them towards the most imposing structure, the main hull of the Odyssey itself. They entered through a large airlock that had been converted into a fortified entrance. The inside of the generation ship was a marvel. It was a mix of ancient, rust-streaked technology and new, practical adaptations. Wires and pipes ran along the walls, but they were neatly organized. Lights, powered by the ship's struggling reactor, cast a steady glow. It was clean, orderly, and felt incredibly strong. It felt like a fortress that had weathered 1,000 storms. Chul took them to a large room that must have once been a common area. Now it served as a meeting hall and command center. A large, faded screen on one wall showed a schematic of the ship and the surrounding area, with blinking lights indicating the shield perimeter and sensor posts. "Your ship?" Captain Min began, choosing his words carefully. "The Odyssey. We detected it from orbit. We did not think such a vessel could survive on a world like this." Chul leaned against a metal table, his arms crossed. "It almost didn't," he said, his voice matter-of-fact. "We were a sleeper ship from Earth. Lost. A navigation failure sent us off course for centuries. We were pulled into the gravity well of this place. The crash, it killed most of us. Woke the rest." He gestured around the room. "The ones who woke up found themselves in a nightmare. But we are human. We adapt." Sue, her curiosity overcoming her fear, asked, "How? How did you adapt? The plants are toxic, the animals?" "Our food," Chul finished for her. "We learned. We tasted everything in small amounts. We learned which plants could be eaten after boiling, which ones could heal wounds, which ones would kill you in seconds. We learned the patterns of the predators. We learned to use the terrain. The first years were the worst. We lived in the wreckage, fighting for every hour. But we grew stronger. Our bodies changed. Our children, born here, are even stronger." Jean listened, his scientist's mind racing. "Your biological adaptations are extraordinary. The increased muscle density, the metabolic rate. You are evolving to match the environment." Chul shrugged, as if it were a simple fact of life. "The weak did not survive. It is the law of this world. It is our law now. He looked at them, his gaze direct. And you? This galactic concord? You have many worlds. Yes, Min said. Many worlds. We live in peace. We explore. We seek knowledge. We have not known a world like this, or a struggle like yours, for a very long time. The way Chul looked at them changed subtly. It was not hostility, but a deep, profound sense of difference. He saw their soft hands, their gentle movements, their confusion in the face of the planet's dangers. He saw a people who had forgotten what it meant to fight. You have not known struggle, Chul repeated, not as a question, but as a conclusion. You have forgotten the taste of fear, the need to fight for the next breath. You look at this world and see death. We look at it and see home. It has tested us, and we have proven ourselves worthy. Just then, a low, resonant alarm began to sound, a deep hum that vibrated through the ship's hull. Chul's head snapped up, his calm demeanor shifting instantly to one of focused readiness. One of his people, a young woman named Mija, rushed into the room. Chul, she said, her voice urgent but controlled. The river, a trench behemoth has surfaced. It is moving towards the western sensor post. It is agitated. Chul nodded. Sound the defense alert. All non-essential personnel to the inner hull. He turned to the Concorde crew. You will come with me. You wanted to see how we live? Now you will see why. Chul did not run. He moved with a fast, purposeful stride that forced the Concorde crew to hurry to keep up. They followed him out of the meeting hall and back into the main corridor of the Odyssey. The ship was no longer a quiet, sturdy home. It was a hive of controlled, efficient activity. People moved with a clear sense of purpose, securing hatches and gathering tools that were clearly also weapons. Children were being ushered into deeper, more protected sections of the ship. There was no panic, only practice. They climbed a steep, internal ladder to an observation post built into the ship's superstructure. It was a platform protected by a thick, transparent alloy, giving them a sweeping view of the entire western side of the settlement. Where the jungle met the raging river, Captain Min's breath caught in his throat. The creature emerging from the water was a monster from a deep-sea nightmare, but it was here on land. The trench behemoth was longer than their shuttle. Its body was a mass of slimy, gray-green scales, and it moved on four thick, powerful limbs equipped with long, curved claws designed for digging through river mud. Its head was mostly mouth, a gaping maw lined with rows of serrated teeth. It let out a deep, rumbling bellow that vibrated through the observation post's floor. It's attracted by the new energy signature, Chul said calmly, not taking his eyes off the beast. Your ship in orbit confuses them, makes them aggressive. On the bridge of the Starlight Serenity, Hannah's voice was tight with alarm over the comms. Captain, we are reading a massive biological signature on the surface. The energy output is off the scale. Do you require an emergency extraction? Min looked at the monster, then at Chul's composed face. Stand by, Hannah. Do not intervene unless I give the order. He knew that a show of force from the Starlight Serenity could be misinterpreted. This was a test, not just of the settlers' strength, but of their way of life. The behemoth slammed a clawed limb into the outer defensive wall. The impact was like a thunderclap, and a section of the stone and metal barrier shattered. The Concorde crew flinched. Day's hand went to his hip, where no weapon existed. His training was useless here. Chul picked up a small, handheld radio. Phase 1. Divert it. Now. He wasn't trying to kill it. He was trying to redirect it. From hidden positions along the wall, teams of settlers emerged. They did not attack the beast directly. Instead, they launched large, weighted nets. The nets were not meant to hold the creature, but to annoy and disorient it. Others threw clay pots that shattered against its hide, releasing a pungent, acrid smell that made the beast shake its head in irritation. The scent confuses it, Jean whispered, watching in fascination. They are using its own senses against it. The behemoth roared in frustration and turned away from the main settlement, following the source of the annoying smell. It was being lured towards a narrower part of the valley, where the ground was rocky and unstable. Phase 2, Chul said into his radio as the creature moved into the chosen area. A series of loud cracks echoed through the valley. The settlers had pre-weakened the rock face above. Now they triggered a controlled landslide. Tons of rock and earth tumbled down, not onto the behemoth, but in front of it, cutting off its path back to the river and herding it further into the trap. The beast was now confused and angry, trapped in a killing zone. It turned its rage towards the settlers who were harrying it, its massive tail whipping through the air and smashing a large tree to splinters. Sue gasped. It's going to kill them. But the settlers were ready. They moved in coordinated teams, never staying in one place for long. They used the rugged terrain to their advantage, popping up from behind rocks to fire heavy crossbow bolts into the softer joints of the creature's limbs. The bolts weren't meant to be fatal. They were meant to slow it down, to bleed it, to tire it out. It's a battle of attrition, Day observed, his voice full of a newfound respect. They are not fighting its strength. They are fighting its stamina. The behemoth was slowing. Its movements became clumsier. Its roars were less frequent, more labored. It was a magnificent engine of destruction, but it was being systematically broken down by a community that understood the land better than it did. Finally, Chul gave the last order. Phase 3. The pit. The creature, enraged and bleeding, charged a group of settlers who were taunting it from a small rise. The ground beneath its massive weight gave way. It was not a deep pit, but one lined with sharpened, fire-hardened stakes. The behemoth bellowed in pain and surprise, trapped and mortally wounded. The settlers did not cheer. They moved in quickly and efficiently, ending its suffering with precise strikes. The fight was over. Chul turned to the Concord crew. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide. They had just witnessed a military-grade operation against a force of nature, executed with breathtaking skill and zero casualties. You see, Chul said, his voice quiet but firm, we do not conquer this world. We negotiate with it. We understand its rules. We use its own violence against it. That is how we survive. Captain Min could not find any words. The peaceful, logical philosophies of the Concord seemed fragile and naive in the face of such brutal, practical mastery. These people had not been conquered by the Deathworld. They had learned its language, and now they were holding a conversation. And they were winning. The air inside the Odyssey felt different after the battle. For the settlers, it was a return to normal. The behemoth was already being butchered, its tough hide and dense meat a valuable prize. For the Concord crew, it was as if the very nature of reality had shifted. They stood in the meeting hall, the images of the coordinated attack seared into their minds. The casual, efficient violence was something their culture had left behind millennia ago. Captain Min finally found his voice. He looked at Chul, who was calmly receiving reports on the successful harvest of the beast. Chul, Min began, his tone formal and respectful. The Galactic Concord has many resources. We have ships that can take your people away from this constant struggle. We can relocate you to a peaceful world, a world without monsters and acid storms, a world where your children would not have to learn to set snares before they learn to read. It was the most generous offer the Concord could make. It was the foundation of their civilization, to offer sanctuary, peace, and a gentle life. Chul listened patiently. He looked around the room, at the worn but strong metal of the Odyssey's walls. He looked at his people moving with purpose outside the door. Then he looked back at Captain Min, and his eyes held a deep, unshakable certainty. We thank you for your offer, Chul said, his voice even. It is a kind one, but we must decline. Sue looked surprised. Decline? But why? You wouldn't have to fight anymore. You wouldn't have to live in fear. Fear? Chul asked, and for the first time, a real smile, small and hard, touched his lips. We do not live in fear. We live with awareness. There is a difference. On one of your peaceful worlds, what would we be? We would be visitors, curiosities, people who do not know your soft ways. He walked over to a viewport and pointed out at the vibrant, dangerous jungle. This world is brutal. It is true. It has taken many of us. But it has also given us everything. It has given us strength. It has given us purpose. It has forged us into who we are. We are not the same people who crashed here in the Odyssey. That person is gone. Jean, the scientist, understood first. You have undergone a form of rapid, directed evolution. Not just biological but cultural. Your entire society is an adaptation to this single environment. Chol nodded. Yes, we have been tested in fire and blood, and we were found worthy. This world is our home. We have tamed it not by breaking it, but by learning its rhythms. We are not survivors hiding in a wreck. We are a people. And this, he said, gesturing to the settlement and the planet beyond, is our sovereign territory. The word landed in the room with the weight of a mountain. Sovereign. It was not a request for help. It was a declaration of independence. Captain Min was silent for a long time. He thought of the Concorde's endless, peaceful worlds. He thought of their gentle art, their complex music, their quiet philosophies. And then he thought of the settlers, their powerful bodies and unbreakable wills, turning a nightmare into a home. They were not a people who needed to be saved. They were a people who had already saved themselves. I understand, Min said finally, and he truly did. The mission had not been one of rescue. It had been one of discovery. They had not found a tragedy. They had found a triumph. The Galactic Concorde will respect your sovereignty. We will note this star system as the territory of the... What do you call yourselves? Chol looked at his people, then back at Min. We are the people of the Odyssey. But that is a name from the past. We are the people of this world. We will decide our name in our own time. The message was clear. They would make their own future, on their own terms. Preparations were made for the Concorde crew to leave. As they walked back to their shuttle, the settlers watched them, not with hostility, but with a quiet confidence. They were not saying goodbye to saviors. They were saying goodbye to visitors. Back on the clean, quiet bridge of the Starlight Serenity, the crew was silent. The ship lifted smoothly from the planet's surface, leaving the green and blue Deathworld behind. Hannah broke the silence. Their reactor. I was analyzing the data. It is failing. They have maybe 2 generations before it goes critical. Jean looked up from his own screen. Their biological adaptations are remarkable, but the trace toxins in the environment are cumulative. It will cause health problems in the long term. They had the data. They knew the challenges the people below still faced. Captain Min stood at the viewscreen, watching the planet shrink. They know, he said softly. They know their reactor is failing. They know about the toxins. They are not ignorant. They are choosing their path anyway. He turned to his crew. We will not report them as a lost colony or a rescue target. We will report them as a sovereign human state, the first of its kind. And we will open a diplomatic channel. We will not offer them a new home. We will offer them trade. We can offer them reactor parts, medical knowledge. They can offer us understanding. An understanding of strength we have forgotten. Sue smiled for the first time since they had landed. They don't need us to save them. They just need to know they are not alone. The Starlight Serenity jumped into faster-than-light travel, leaving the system behind. But they carried a new story with them, a story that would change the Concorde forever. It was not a story about a death world. It was a story about the indomitable will of the people who had tamed it. Humanity wasn't just surviving in the dark. They had learned to command the very hell that sought to consume them.